"Ma'am, you need to order something, or you need to give this table to a paying customer." The elderly woman slowly looked up from the menu. Her eyes were tired and unfocused. She'd been sitting alone at table 7 for several minutes, staring at the same page without ordering a single thing. "I just need another minute," she whispered. Tessa Monroe, the manager of the Copper Lantern Cafe, folded her arms. The lunch crowd would arrive soon, and she had no intention of allowing someone who appeared unable to pay to occupy a table. "This isn't a warming shelter," Tessa said quietly. "I'm asking you to leave." The woman lowered her eyes. Her black coat hung loosely from her shoulders. Her gray hair was untidy. Her face was pale. One hand trembled against the menu. She looked like someone who had walked in from the cold, simply hoping that no one would notice how badly she was struggling. At the booth nearby, a man stopped cutting his daughter's breakfast in half. His name was Owen Bishop. He was 40 years old, a widowed father. For the past 3 years, he had raised his 8-year-old daughter Ruby alone. And 8 months earlier, his entire life had fallen apart. Owen had worked for 13 years as a commercial refrigeration technician. Then, he was fired. Since losing his job, he had survived on delivery shifts and small repair jobs. That morning, he had only $18.60 left after buying gas. Even the breakfast sitting between him and Ruby felt like a luxury. 2 eggs, a little sausage, potatoes, 2 pieces of toast. Owen had told Ruby he wasn't hungry. The truth was that he wanted his daughter to eat enough. Ruby sat across from him wearing a yellow knitted scarf wrapped twice around her neck. She had been watching the elderly woman. "Dad," she whispered. "She's shaking." Across the aisle, the woman slowly pushed her chair back. "I understand," she told Tessa. There was no anger in her voice, only exhaustion. She buttoned her coat with unsteady fingers and started toward the door. Ruby looked at her father. "She can have some of mine." Owen watched the woman take one slow step, then another. He knew exactly what it felt like to leave a place while pretending the humiliation didn't hurt. "Ma'am." The woman stopped. Owen pulled an empty chair toward their booth. "You can sit with us." Tessa's expression tightened. "Mr. Bishop, she hasn't ordered." Owen looked directly at her. "She's sitting at a table that's already paid for." The elderly woman looked from Owen to Ruby. "You don't have to do that." "I know." "I know." That answer made her pause. Owen raised his hand toward a passing server. "Could we get one more bowl, please?" Tessa stepped closer. "You cannot turn one meal into a free service arrangement. We're not asking for another meal." Owen divided the skillet. A small portion went into Ruby's bowl. A smaller portion went into his. The rest went into the empty bowl. Then Ruby moved one piece of toast from her own plate to the woman. The little girl stood. She unwound the yellow scarf from around her neck. Then she walked over and placed it around the woman's shoulders. "You can borrow this." The woman stared at the scarf. "Until your ride comes," Ruby added. "My ride?" Ruby nodded seriously. "My dad says people shouldn't wait outside when it's this cold." Owen had never actually said those exact words, but he didn't correct her. The woman touched the scarf. It was still warm from Ruby's neck. "Thank you. My name's Ruby." The woman swallowed. "Beatrice." Owen pushed the bowl toward her. "I'm Owen." He had no idea that the woman wearing his daughter's scarf was the person who controlled the company that had destroyed his professional reputation. Beatrice looked down at the tiny portions of food. "You were sharing this already." "We still are." She noticed Owen's glass. No coffee, no second plate, no side order. Then she noticed something else. Whenever Ruby wasn't looking, Owen quietly pushed the larger share of potatoes toward his daughter. "You should eat," Beatrice said. "So should you." For several seconds, none of them moved. Then Ruby picked up her fork. "It gets cold fast." For the first time in days, Beatrice smiled. They began eating. Outside, the late November wind pushed dry leaves along Maple Avenue. Inside, the cafe smelled of coffee, butter, and cinnamon. Beatrice took one bite of egg. Then she lowered her fork. Her eyes filled with tears. Ruby looked at Owen, worried that she had done something wrong. Owen gently shook his head. Beatrice pressed a napkin to her mouth. "I'm sorry." "You don't have to be," Owen said. Beatrice looked toward table 7, the table where Tessa had just humiliated her. "My son used to sit there." Owen said nothing. He loved the blueberry pancakes here. She gave a tiny laugh, even when he was old enough to know they weren't very good. Ruby looked at the menu. They looked good in the picture. Beatrice laughed again. This time the sound collapsed into a breath. Today would have been his birthday. Owen understood. He didn't ask how her son died. He didn't tell her that everything happened for a reason. He didn't offer one of those polished sentences people use when they want grief to become comfortable. Instead, he simply moved the napkin holder closer. Ruby touched Beatrice's sleeve. My mom died, too. Owen's hand stopped. Ruby rarely talked about her mother first. Beatrice looked at her. How old were you? 5. I'm sorry. But Ruby nodded. Dad still makes her pancakes on her birthday. Owen looked down. They usually burned. Ruby added it so casually that Beatrice smiled through her tears. For the first time in 10 days, she felt something besides the silence of her own house. Then a sharp electronic alarm sounded near the counter. Everyone turned. The display on the refrigerated dessert case flashed red. 48 degrees. Tessa rushed over and pressed a button. The alarm stopped, but Owen was already looking at the case. A bead of water ran down the lower edge. The compressor made a rough, uneven hum. Tessa. She looked back. That case needs to be checked. It does that sometimes. The temperature is too high. It was opened during the morning delivery. Owen shook his head. It's been warm longer than that. Tessa walked toward him. You're here as a customer. Yes. No. Then let the staff handle it. I'm trying to help you handle it. Her eyes dropped to his faded delivery jacket. What qualifies you to diagnose our equipment from a booth? 13 years in commercial refrigeration. Tessa gave him a thin smile. And now? Owen understood what she meant. Now he delivered packages. Now he repaired washing machines in apartment basements. Now people looked at his faded work jacket and assumed that losing his job meant he had never been good at it. Now I'm telling you, the dairy and cream products in that case need to be checked with a calibrated thermometer. You are not authorized to touch company equipment. I haven't touched it. He pointed toward the condensation. Move the perishable food to the walk-in cooler. Put a hold on anything that has been above safe temperature. Call your refrigeration contractor. We have procedures. Then follow them. Ruby sat very still. She had seen adults talk to her father that way before. They heard the words delivery driver and stopped listening. A young server named Mia stepped from behind the counter. I can check it. Tessa turned sharply. I said it's fine. Mia looked at the display. It says 48. Because the door was opened, Tessa said. Owen spoke quietly. Check the milk near the center. Tessa looked at the customers who were beginning to watch. Fine. We'll prove it's fine. Mia sanitized the probe. She tested a carton of milk. Everyone waited. The reading appeared. 47 degrees. The room changed. Owen stood, but he stayed several feet away from the case. Move the food. Mark the time. Don't serve anything from that unit until the contractor clears it. Tessa opened her mouth. Then the alarm sounded again. Mia began moving the products. Another employee joined her. Owen sat back down. He hadn't opened a panel. He hadn't pretended to know exactly what had failed. He had simply recognized a warning and told the staff to verify it. Beatrice watched him. You knew what that sound meant. I knew what it could mean. There's a difference. A big one. Oh, Owen looked toward the refrigerator. A warning tells you to stop and verify. It doesn't give you permission to guess. Just then a man entered the cafe wearing a dark wool coat. He was in his late 60s, silver-haired and visibly relieved when he spotted Beatrice. Mrs. Kessler. Tessa froze. The man hurried toward the table. I'm sorry, there was nowhere to park. I had to circle the block. It's all right, Frank. Tessa stared at the woman in the yellow scarf. Then her eyes moved toward an old black-and-white photograph near the register. The photograph showed a much younger Beatrice Kessler standing beside her husband in front of the first Silver Pine Market. Beneath it were golden letters. Beatrice and Thomas Kessler, founders, Silver Pine Foods. The Copper Lantern Cafe was owned by Silver Pine Foods. Every paycheck in that building carried Beatrice Kessler's company name. Tessa's face went pale. Mrs. Kessler. I didn't recognize you. Beatrice looked at her for a long moment. That was the problem. Tessa stepped forward. I was trying to protect the dining experience. From what? Tessa had no answer. From a grieving old woman sitting alone? I didn't know who you were. Beatrice touched Ruby's scarf. How many people have you sent back into the cold because you thought they couldn't afford to matter? Tessa's lips parted. Nothing came out. Beatrice did not demand that she be fired. Instead, she looked toward the refrigerated case. Preserve the camera footage from this morning. Keep the temperature logs. Keep the alarm history and maintenance records. Tessa swallowed. Yes, ma'am. Call the licensed contractor. Yes, ma'am. Document what they find. Yes, ma'am. Then Beatrice turned to Mia. Thank you for checking. Mia looked stunned. Frank pulled out his phone and began making notes. Owen gathered the empty bowls. You don't need to do that, Tessa said quickly. Owen looked at her. I know. Beatrice began unwinding Ruby's scarf. Ruby reached across the table. You can keep it until you're home. Beatrice held it against her chest. Then I'll make sure it gets back to you. Owen reached into his jacket. He handed her a simple business card. Owen Bishop. AP&C Repair and Refrigeration Support. His phone number was printed beneath the name. Beatrice stared at it. Something about the name tugged at her memory, but grief had blurred the previous months into one long grey corridor. Thank you, Mr. Bishop. For breakfast? Owen asked. For seeing me. Ruby smiled. We saw you because you were right there. Beatrice looked at the child. Yes, she whispered. I suppose you were. Frank helped her into a black sedan. As the car disappeared down the street, Owen returned to the table. He counted the remaining bills in his wallet. Ruby watched him. Are we in trouble? No. Did we spend too much? Owen looked at the empty skillet. We spent what we chose to spend. Ruby thought about that. Then she asked the question that had been bothering her. Was she really a billionaire? Owen smiled. That's what the picture said. Ruby looked pleased. She still needed my scarf. Yes, Owen said. She did. By that afternoon, an independent contractor had inspected the refrigerated case. The result was serious. A failing relay had prevented the unit from holding a safe temperature for nearly 2 hours. Because the food had been moved quickly, the cafe avoided serving products that should have been discarded. The potential loss was almost $5,000. The contractor also discovered something worse. Similar alarms had been cleared 3 times during the previous month without a complete service visit. At 3:15 that afternoon, Beatrice sat in the back of her car outside the home she had barely left in 10 days. Ruby's yellow scarf was still around her shoulders. The house looked exactly as it had that morning. Curtains closed. Lights off. Jonathan's unopened birthday cards remained on the hall table. Her son would have been 49. Visitors had spent days entering that house with documents. Approve this. Sign that. Transfer authority. Owen had asked for an empty bowl. Beatrice picked up her phone. She called Elena Park, Silver Pine's general counsel. I need you to verify someone. Who? Who? Owen Bishop. What am I verifying? His refrigeration credentials? His work history? Anything connected to Silver Pine? There was a pause. Was he involved in the cafe incident? He prevented it from becoming worse. I'll look. I'll look. And Elena? Yes? Do it quietly. 2 hours later, Elena called back. Her tone was different. Owen Bishop worked for Silver Pine for 13 years. Beatrice sat straighter. In what division? Cold storage operations. Senior systems technician. Why did he leave? He didn't. Beatrice's expression changed. He was terminated 8 months ago. For what? The file said insubordination and failure to support management direction. Any safety violations? No. Attendance problems? No. No. Previous discipline? One written warning shortly before termination. For what? Elena hesitated, refusing to sign a commissioning report. Beatrice felt her memory returning. Months earlier, Jonathan had mentioned a technician involved in a dispute over a new cold storage facility. He had said the man might have been punished for refusing to approve something. Jonathan had already been sick. A nurse had entered the room. The conversation had ended. Beatrice had never asked about it again. Who signed the termination? Elena hesitated. Caleb Stroud. Beatrice's nephew. After Jonathan entered the hospital, Caleb had become acting chief executive. Since the funeral, he had called almost every day asking when Beatrice would approve the transfer of voting authority. Pulled the full file. I may need authorization from operations. You have mine. The next morning, Caleb Stroud walked into his office on the 32nd floor of Silver Pine's Denver headquarters. He was 47, perfectly dressed, calm, controlled, the kind of executive who could make people feel their jobs depended on every word they spoke. His assistant told him legal had requested records related to Owen Bishop. Caleb stopped. Why? She didn't say. Who made the request? Elena Park. Caleb closed his office door. 8 months earlier, Owen had delayed the opening of a regional cold storage facility by refusing to sign the final report. The project was already behind schedule. Vendors were threatening penalties. Investors had been promised an opening date. Owen had said the temperature data wasn't stable enough to prove the system would perform under a full load. Caleb had called it excessive caution. When Owen refused to soften his conclusion, Caleb removed him from the project. Then he removed him from the company. Caleb had considered the matter finished. Until now. He called Beatrice. Aunt B. I heard you went to Fort Collins yesterday. I did. You should have told security. I had, Frank. You haven't been eating. It wasn't safe. The concern in his voice was smooth. Practiced. I met Owen Bishop, Beatrice said. Silence. That explains the legal request. Tell me about him. He was a resentful former employee who refused to follow the chain of command. He recognized a refrigeration failure from across a restaurant. That doesn't change what happened. What did happen? He delayed a major project and undermined leadership in front of contractors. What instruction did he refuse? To revise an unnecessarily alarming report. Was the report wrong? It was incomplete. That is not what I asked. Caleb walked toward the window. Aunt B, you're grieving. Bishop saw you in a vulnerable condition and attached himself to you. He didn't know my name. He says that. He shared the only meal he could afford with me. That kind of gesture creates emotional leverage. His daughter gave me her scarf. Children can be persuasive. Beatrice closed her eyes. I want the full file. You have people for that. Yes. They're already working. She ended the call. That evening, Owen was replacing a washing machine drain pump in the basement of an apartment building when his phone rang. Mr. Bishop? Yes. This is Beatrice Kessler. Owen sat back on his heels. Did the scarf make it home? It did. It's the warmest thing in my house. Owen waited. The contractor confirmed your warning about the refrigerator. I'm glad they caught it. I also learned you worked for Silver Pine. Owen's hand tightened around the phone. I did. Why didn't you tell me? You were eating breakfast. That is not an answer. It's the answer I have. Beatrice remained quiet. Owen wiped grease from his fingers. I didn't help you because of your company. I didn't know it was your company until your driver walked in. And after you knew, I wasn't going to discuss my personnel file in front of my daughter. I would like to hear what happened. With your lawyer present? Yes. Yes. At your headquarters? At Elena Park's office in Fort Collins, a neutral location. The meeting will be documented. Owen thought about it. He had spent 8 months avoiding Silver Pine, avoiding former co-workers, avoiding the building where security had watched him pack 13 years of his life into a cardboard box. What do you want from me? He asked. The truth. And if it embarrasses your company, then the company should be embarrassed. Owen looked down at the broken pump on the floor. He thought about Ruby asking whether they would have to move again. He thought about all the applications asking whether he had ever been fired for calls. I'll be there. 2 days later, Owen entered Elena Park's office wearing his cleanest work shirt. Beatrice was already seated at the conference table. Ruby's yellow scarf lay folded beside her. Elena sat across from them with a laptop and a recorder. "This is a fact-finding meeting," Elena said. "It is not a job offer, not a settlement, and not a promise of corrective action." Owen nodded. "I understand." Elena reviewed his employment history. 13 years, no safety violations, strong performance reviews, 2 promotions. Then came the North Range cold storage project. A subcontractor had installed lower-cost components instead of the models specified in the design. Owen did not claim that the replacements were automatically dangerous. His objection was simpler. The test results did not prove the system could hold stable temperatures under a full operating load. "What did you recommend?" Elena asked. "Use the specified components, or repeat the full test for 72 hours. What was Caleb's response? "He said the facility had an opening date. He said I was turning an engineering question into a moral performance." "And you?" "I understood the deadline." Owen looked at Elena. "I also understood that my name would be on the certification." Elena opened a scanned report. "This is the final document in your personnel file." Owen read the conclusion. His face changed. "That isn't my report." "How is it different?" "I wrote that the stability data was insufficient. This says the variation was within expected conditions." "Did you make that change?" "No." "Did you authorize it?" "No." "No." Beatrice's face went still. "What happened after you refused to sign?" "I was removed from the project. 2 weeks later, I was fired." "Did you appeal?" "Yes." "And?" "I was told management had acted within its discretion." Beatrice looked at him. "What did it cost you?" Owen looked away. "That isn't part of the technical record." "It is part of the truth." He hesitated. Then he told them. He lost his health insurance. He sold his truck to stay current on rent. The termination language made other industrial employers cautious. He moved Ruby from the duplex where she had lived since her mother died into a smaller apartment. "Does Ruby know why?" "She knows I changed jobs. That's all." "She's 8. That." Owen leaned back. "I wasn't going to turn my daughter into the audience for a fight between adults." Elena stopped the recorder. "I need to search Jonathan's archive review files." Beatrice's breath caught. "Why?" "Before he entered the hospital, Jonathan asked legal to preserve records connected to contractor substitutions and maintenance reductions. His review was never finished. The archive was found the following morning. Inside were Owen's original test data, photographs of the substituted parts, and an email from Caleb. The language needs to reflect business judgment, not technician anxiety. Adjust the conclusion and keep us on schedule." Then Elena found a short note from Jonathan. "Bishop's termination requires independent review. The technical record does not support the personnel conclusion." Beatrice read the note twice. Her son hadn't finished the investigation, but he had seen enough to question what the company had done. The board was scheduled to consider Caleb's permanent appointment on Monday. Beatrice looked at Elena. "They received this before they vote." Caleb learned about the archive before the weekend. On Saturday morning, he met privately with Tessa in the cafe office. Tessa had already received written notice that her treatment of Beatrice was under review. She was frightened and ashamed. Caleb placed a draft statement on her desk. "This gives legal the full context." Tessa read it. The statement claimed that Owen had interfered with company equipment, disrupted service, and used the incident to approach Beatrice. "That isn't what happened," Tessa said. "You told him not to touch the case." "He didn't touch it. He influenced staff actions. He told Mia to check the temperature, and food was removed because of him. The contractor said the case was failing." Caleb leaned closer. "The board will be deciding whether your judgment can still be trusted." The words weren't a direct threat. They didn't need to be. A complete statement could help them understand the pressure you were under. Tessa looked at the paper. "I need time." "You don't have much." He left the statement on her desk. On Sunday, Elena reviewed the cafe footage. The images were clear. Owen never touched the case. Tessa silenced the alarm. Mia performed the temperature check. Employees moved the food only after the reading confirmed the problem. The footage also showed Beatrice sitting with Owen and Ruby before Frank revealed her identity. When Elena interviewed Tessa, the manager began by repeating Caleb's version. Halfway through, she stopped. He wanted me to make Bishop sound dangerous. Did he threaten you? Elena asked. Not directly. What did he say? That the board would decide whether my judgment could still be trusted. Tessa pushed the draft statement across the table. I was wrong about Mrs. Kessler. She took a breath. I'm not signing another wrong thing to protect myself. Monday's board meeting began at 9. It had originally been scheduled to discuss Caleb Stroud's appointment as permanent chief executive. Instead, Elena opened with a motion to revise the agenda. Caleb sat at the far end of the table. Beatrice sat at the center. For the first time since Jonathan's funeral, she wore something other than black. Ruby's yellow scarf rested around her neck. Elena presented the evidence in order. Owen's original test data, the altered conclusion, Caleb's email, the disciplinary action that began after Owen refused to sign, Jonathan's note, the cafe footage, Tessa's draft statement, and Tessa's accounts of Caleb's pressure. Caleb remained controlled. This is being framed without operational context. The facility opened successfully. The system was adjusted. No product was lost. No one was injured. A board member named Harold leaned forward. Was the system adjusted before or after Bishop refused to certify it? Caleb paused. After additional testing. Harold nodded. Then his objection was valid. His concern was addressed. After he was removed, Caleb's jaw tightened. He was not terminated for raising a concern. He was terminated for how he raised it. Harold gestured toward Owen. Owen had been invited only to answer technical questions. He wore the same clean work shirt from the Fort Commons meeting. Mr. Bishop. Yes. Yes. Was the original system proven unsafe? No. Was it proven stable under full operating load? No. No. What did you refuse to sign? A statement saying the data showed stable operation. Why? Because it didn't. Caleb turned toward him. You could have respected the chain of command. I used the appeal process. You challenged executive judgment in front of contractors. I answered a commissioning question in front of the people performing the commissioning. You delayed a $9 million facility. Owen looked at him. The system delayed the facility. Silence filled the room. Caleb's face hardened. You always believed your technical opinion outweighed the needs of the company. Owen remained calm. Refusing to certify something unproven wasn't disloyalty. He paused. It was the job. Elena displayed the draft statement Caleb had given Tessa. This was created after legal reopened Mr. Bishop's file. Caleb glanced toward the door. Tessa misunderstood my request. Did you ask her to state that Owen interfered with the equipment? I asked for a complete account. Did you review the footage first? No. Did you suggest her employment depended on how the board viewed her judgment? Caleb didn't answer. Beatrice finally spoke. You told me Owen used my grief to attach himself to me. I was protecting you. No. No. Her voice was quiet. You were protecting the story you had already chosen. Caleb leaned forward. Add B, you met a former employee while you were grieving. You are allowing one breakfast to influence corporate governance. Beatrice touched the yellow scarf around her neck. The breakfast did not create the evidence. She looked at Jonathan's note on the screen. It made me willing to see it. The board entered executive session. Owen waited in an empty conference room. He didn't know whether his record would be corrected. He didn't know whether the company would offer anything beyond regret. His phone vibrated. A message from Ruby appeared. Did the truth win yet? Owen stared at the words. Then he typed, They're still listening. 23 minutes later, Elena entered. The board has suspended Caleb Stroud from all executive authority pending an independent investigation. Owen nodded slowly. What about the CEO appointment? Removed from consideration. And my file? Your termination is now listed as disputed pending final review. Compensation and benefits will be evaluated after the investigation. Owen looked at her. That isn't the same as clearing my name. No. Elena looked directly at him. It is the beginning. 6 weeks later, the independent investigation confirmed everything. Caleb had interfered with technical reporting. He had retaliated against Owen. He had concealed contract substitutions from the board. and he had pressured Tessa to provide a misleading statement. The board terminated Caleb's employment. He lost his succession bonus. He lost any chance of becoming chief executive. Owen's personnel record was formally corrected. Silver Pine acknowledged that his technical objection had been valid, and they acknowledged that his dismissal had been retaliatory. A negotiated agreement restored his lost compensation, benefits, and retirement contributions. Beatrice offered Owen a senior executive position. Owen declined. He didn't want gratitude to place him in a role he hadn't earned. Instead, I was cut to the 30-day independent assessment contract. He reviewed maintenance records at 3 facilities. Then he presented his recommendations to a hiring panel that included no member of Beatrice's family. At the end of the process, Silver Pine offered him a position suited to his experience. Regional Maintenance Integrity Supervisor. It didn't make him rich, but it gave him stable hours, health insurance for Ruby, and work that allowed him to sign his own name without compromising what that name meant. Tessa faced consequences too. She received a formal warning. She lost her management duties during retraining. She was required to complete a review on customer treatment and food safety procedures. Caleb had pressured her, but he hadn't made her judge Beatrice by her coat. That choice had been hers. Tessa cooperated with the investigation, and she apologized without asking for immediate forgiveness. On Caleb's final day at Silver Pine, he returned his access card and collected the last of his files. Owen was leaving Elena's office when they met in the corridor. Caleb looked older, without the authority he had spent years trying to secure. For a moment, neither man spoke. Then Caleb finally said, "I thought you were trying to embarrass me. I was trying not to sign a false report. I know that now." Owen waited. Caleb looked toward the closed boardroom doors. "The person I treated like an obstacle was the person protecting the company." Owen's expression didn't change. "Knowing it doesn't prepare it." "No. What you do next might." Caleb nodded. He didn't ask for his job back. He didn't demand forgiveness. He continued cooperating with the audit and surrendered the records investigators requested. Beatrice slowly returned to public life. Her grief didn't disappear. Some mornings, she still woke reaching for her phone before remembering Jonathan would never call. But she began visiting Owen and Ruby. At first, only for dinner. Then for Ruby's school music program. Then for a Saturday science fair. Ruby built a cardboard model of a refrigerated truck and proudly announced that warm milk was bad business. And also gross. Beatrice laughed harder than anyone in the room. One evening, she sat at Owen's kitchen table repairing a loose seam in the yellow scarf. "Grandma B. Beatrice looked up. "You missed a spot." The room became quiet. Ruby looked nervous. "Is that okay?" Beatrice's hands stopped moving. "Yes," she whispered. "That is very okay." Silver Pine restored the community meal program Jonathan had once supported. Customers experiencing hardship could request food discreetly. No one had to explain their situation in front of a crowded room. No one was filmed for advertising. No employee was allowed to turn a person's hunger into company publicity. A small brass bowl was placed near the register at every Copper Lantern cafe. Customers could contribute privately. Silver Pine matched the donations every month. The first bowl was installed at the Fort Collins location. Several months after the morning that changed all 3 of their lives, Owen, Ruby, and Beatrice returned to the cafe. The wind outside was sharp, but the sky was clear. Tessa greeted them at the door. "Good morning, Mrs. Kessler." "Good morning, Tessa." Tessa looked at Owen. "Mr. Bishop." Then she looked at Ruby. "I like your scarf." Ruby smiled. "It's warm." They sat at table 7. Owen ordered 3 full breakfasts. Blueberry pancakes for Beatrice, eggs and toast for Ruby, coffee, and a skillet for himself. When the food arrived, Ruby looked at the portions and grinned. "This is way more than last time." Owen nodded. "Things are better." Ruby glanced toward the brass community bowl near the register. A folded card beside it read, "No one should have to prove they deserve a warm meal." Ruby slipped out of the booth. A moment later, she returned carrying an empty bowl. Owen raised an eyebrow. "What's that for?" Ruby placed it in the center of the table. "In case somebody needs it." Beatrice touched the yellow scarf around her shoulders. The same scarf a little girl had given her when no one knew her name. A few minutes later, an older man entered alone. His coat was thin. His hands were red from the cold. He stood near the register, studying the prices without sitting down. Ruby looked at Owen. Owen looked at Beatrice. Beatrice lifted the empty bowl. Then she waved the man toward table 7. And this time, nobody asked him to leave.